In 1992, when I started my process, that is when I started my public work in introducing human design, obviously I was the only teacher, if you could call me that. I wasn't particularly good at it, I must say, because I didn't really know enough, but nonetheless, I was the only teacher, and I was the only teacher for years. I think it was January of '96, was the first teachers training. It took place in the village where I lived for many years here in San Juan Bautista. There were a number of people that were there. Locke, who's here today, he was one of those that were there. Martin Grassinger, Peter Scheuber. There was a number of people that are long-time teachers in design who were part of that first generation of teachers that were trained. In 2000, in Vienna, I trained the second generation of teachers. And that was the first generation that was actually taught with a universal principle. In other words, that was the beginning of the organization of formal international design, the various organizations agreeing to work with the same educational program and so forth. For me, this gathering here, this is the third generation of teachers. In other words, this is the next step down the line in this process. And what's so interesting is that they've all been 4 years apart, which I find curious, which is pretty much a Venusian cycle. But anyway, so what we're at is a point now where, for the first time, we have the kind of tools that we need, and we have the structure that gives us the professionalism that we need in order to place representatives out there who not only can do an efficient job, but they can excel in what they do. It is so obvious to me at this point that there are so many tools that we have now in human design that it is a much easier palette for a teacher to work with. There are many ways now in which you can reach the other, through the resistance of the other, because we have tools that can allow us to do that and that are helpful. But I always have the same problem whenever I, do a teaching course. See, teaching for me is not a science. It can't be. It's an art. I don't know if any of you can teach. I honestly don't. I know that most of you will be competent in delivering the information. I mean, that I understand. That's the basic respect that I have for you as students in that sense, and as professionals in design. I know that you'll get the information across, but, I've worked with lots of teachers. I've worked with teachers who look at the curriculum and go, okay, and they deliver whatever they have to deliver, and they get it across, and they make their money, and they walk away. I mean, it's one of the things that we all know about going to school. All of us, if we think back, there is no more than a handful of teachers in the 12 or 15 years that most of us are in institutions. There's only a handful of them that we really felt met us, touched us, saw us, heard us, helped us, inspired us. It's rare. And it's not because they knew the material better. It isn't. It isn't. It's nice to know the material really good. That's all wonderful. But that's not what it's about. I mean, teaching is an art, and I cannot teach you to be a teacher. Let's be clear about that. I cross my fingers, I say, okay, go with God's, but whatever. But it's something that I can't teach you. What I can say to you is that the pleasure of teaching, oh yeah, I'll let you look at that. The pleasure of teaching is what's so important. It's the pleasure. If you take pleasure in it, then it's going to be something that's going to work most of the time, because you have to understand something. The only people you're ever going to teach, and it's true for me, you deserve. It's just the way that it works. You teach what you get, and they're there for you. They're going to be there for you. So if you take pleasure in that, if you can take pleasure in imparting the knowledge, not as a power trip, because the power trip is so incredibly seductive. You know, there is nothing that carries more dangerous arrogance than somebody who thinks they know and who is there to tell somebody else who doesn't. You know, it's a real danger. The beauty of this is that you cannot see yourself as a healer. You cannot see yourself as a holy instrument, God forbid. You know, you can't. What you can see yourself as is just another messenger, because that's the job. It's a messenger's job. And the messenger doesn't carry an agenda. There's no agenda. You know, it's not like, if you don't believe me, I'm going to die. You know, there's no agenda. There's no, I'm right, everyone's wrong. There's nothing. There is simply the fact that you're going to have people that are going to be there on your fractal. They've been waiting, in the mystical sense, life after life after life. And they're out there on the fractal, and the moment that you're ready, you're going to meet them. And what they're there for, despite what they think, because it has nothing to do with what's going on, despite what you may think, which may have nothing to do with what's going on, the fact is that all they're there for is give them the message, and give them the message as a pleasure for you. For you. Because if you don't enjoy it, do me a favor. Don't do it. I mean, don't do it. You know, if you get up the morning before and say, oh my God, what am I doing? You know? You really have to see it's for the pleasure of delivering the message. And if you do it in that way, you are going to get your reward. The real danger in human design is that you can interest people to death. You know? This is the real danger. The real danger is that there's so much information here, and it goes in every kind of direction. And any silly question can be answered in the context of human design. That you can end up being all over the place and never really delivering the essential message. Over the years of doing live readings, I developed a technique. And the technique that I developed is that I would look for what is my central point that I want to deliver to this human being. You know, what's the central point? Is this, you know, let's say the central point is, look, you're a generator, respond. So then what I would do in that reading is, no matter where I would go, it would always lead back to exactly the same place. In other words, it would lead back to what the theme is all about. I'd go to the head center and say blah, 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 and you're a generator, you know, you better respond. You know, and I go to the solar plex and go blah, 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 you're a generator, you better respond. You know, you go through that whole process, you keep on taking them back. The most difficult thing for a teacher to learn pleasure from, and what makes most teachers terrible, truly boring, numbing, is that they don't know how to enjoy repeating the same thing over and over and over again. It's really what teaching is, eh? I mean, you have to understand something. You know how many times I have explained design crystals and personality crystals and magnetic monopoles and gates and channels, and the same dumb questions over and over and over again. You know, all the whys and all the answers, and on and on and on and on. Well, this is what it is to be a teacher. What it is to be a teacher is that you keep on repeating things until you hammer it into their brain. Until they know you're going to say it before you even say it. Yeah, I know, I'm a generator, okay, I'll respond. You know, you keep on going to the point. Repetition. The thing that has saved me in my life is that I'm a musician. There are some songs of mine that I wrote when I was in my 20s that I still sing. I'm playing the same damn little ditties. 30 years. Same song. I mean, it's the same damn song. And yet every time that I play it, well, not every time, most of the time, I love it. I find pleasure in finding another way to do the same thing. Finding another way to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. It's why I can do this. Otherwise, I'd go mad. I mean, I would. How dull it is to repeat the same things over and over and over again without any creativity, without any spirit, without any pleasure in doing it. And it's the repetition that will kill you. Understand that. This is what is known in the teaching circles as just burnout. And you can always see burnout teachers. They're tired of saying the same thing. And yet they're insecure and they don't want to lose their job and they invested a lot of money in becoming a teacher and blah, blah, blah. And they've got this and that and they want to, so they keep, well, you have the personality over here and you have the design over there, and they go through the rote of it. So I can't teach you how to teach. It's spirit, after all. This knowledge is an extraordinary gift to give anybody. And the moment that you realize that what you are doing is truly of value, in my life, never have I enjoyed making money as much as I do now. And it's not for the money. It's for the pleasure of the work. When you see all the kinds of work that are done on this planet and how ugly most of that work is, this is beautiful work. And regardless of the demands of your students who will drive you mad, I know, I've had many students try desperately to drive me mad. I know the way it works. I know the loonies, I know the buzzsaws, I know the ones that you say something to them and they nod their head. I've had nodders in my classes for years. They nod, nothing goes in. Absolutely nothing. It's just a mechanism. They're just nodding their heads, They're the ones that look at you gaga. They're the ones that want you to be their savior. The ones who think you are their savior. Look out for those. I mean, you really have to see, it's quite a trip to get into this business. Because it's not just a simple matter of, okay, there isn't anything that I'm going to go through in this whole period, whatever we go through, however long. Most of you are here for the trek. I know you know this stuff. I mean, otherwise you couldn't do what you do. But the teaching of it, and what you have to deal with, the people that you have to deal with. I mean, remember, knowledge like this still attracts an enormous number of people who are not simply fuzzy, but they have problems. I mean, real problems. The kind of problems that other people have already gone like this to, And they come to you because you're the one. And they're on your fractal, eh? Don't forget that. I never turn a nut away. I don't turn anybody away. You can't imagine the kind of emails that I receive. People who become obsessed and send me an email every 30 minutes, I've had people who've done that over years. Over years. I mean, you have to understand what this is about. It is a connection, and it is a place in the hierarchy that you establish. You open a door to everything that's on your fractal. You do. I mean, those of you that have already been teaching for a while already know that. You open a door and they're there. They're just there. They're standing in line. And some of them you think, well, Jesus, did I really, are they really on my fractal? Oh, that's embarrassing, But then again, I've discovered that I have some real wackos on mine, so I sort of, okay. But you have to see it's people. You're dealing with people. And you're dealing with people that have a deep expectation. I've only been depressed once in my life. Only once. It was when the voice left me. And I was sitting all alone. And I had dropped down from, you know, some spectacular space that I had been in for what seemed like an eternity. And I realized that not only was I being placed in a situation that was really unfair, you know, that I had to run around and say a voice told me how everything worked, but I would have to tell that to the not self. I mean, all my allies. You understand? Can you even imagine? Every single one of my allies, every single one of the people that were going to be there for me as a left-angle being, that were going to give me the opportunity to be able to move this knowledge out and get it to others, they were all not self. I have allies that by the time they became themselves, I couldn't stand them. Nor they me. They were not self. Well, what do you think you're going to meet? I mean, what do you think you're going to meet? See, the moment you take a position like this, you're going to meet nothing but density. Density. I mean, that's what you meet. Not selves. Not selves. Their projections. Not selves. Their inability to know what is right for them. Not selves driven by their conditioning, The fact that they even see you is just their conditioning. They don't know what they're getting. They don't know why they're there. They don't know who you are. They don't know what it's about. I mean, what do you think you meet? You know, it's not like being here and everybody is into it and everybody knows it and there is a level of insight and awareness that you don't meet normally. Oh no, that's not what you're going to get. You're going to get dressed up killer monkeys who have no idea why they're at your door. None. None. I used to love it when I would do introductory lectures. You know, you'd look out and there's 50 or 60 people sitting there. And you know, it's so funny that it's hard. I mean, I try not to think about it because I would stand there and laugh and I think that would make them uncomfortable. The majority of them have no idea why they're in that room. I mean, they don't know. They don't. Oh, yes, they're not self-minded. Said, well, Henrietta said this is really good. They don't know why they're there. They have no idea. As a matter of fact, they don't even know what you're talking about. They don't. They sort of drift along in their conditioning. I mean, you learn this as an analyst. The not self comes into the room and sits down beside you. You know, the chances that you're really going to break through that. See, the first thing I learned about this business is that I can't wake anybody up. I can kick them, I can smack them, you know, I can shriek at them, I can howl, I can point, I can do all kinds of, I can't wake them up. Oh, there are people in my life, you know, if all it took was a smack, boy, would I belt them. Can't wake them up. People can only wake themselves up if it's meant to be. After all, no choice. Doesn't mean any of you. After all, no choice. Doesn't mean any of your students. After all, no choice. It's just the way that it is. You have to see that what you're dealing with is that you can never afford to pay attention to their criticism or their praise. That you can never pay attention to their demands. You can never pay attention to any of that. You can't. You can't afford to identify with the consciousness of people that are unaware. You can't. And the moment that you try that, you're going to get lost in all the bullshit that comes with it. Don't get suckered in, is what I want to tell you. Don't get drawn into students of yours that you have a connection to, and you end up having them as a burden in your life. We are not therapists. We're not. This is not a social service. It isn't. It really isn't. We are mechanical messengers. We give people a system by which they can make decisions correctly as themselves. And what I want you really to see as a teacher is that this is the point. It's the whole point of what we teach. Stripped of everything, stripped of the spiritual stuff and the mystical stuff and the this and the that and the blah, blah, blah and the not selves and the this and that. What it really comes down to is that what we're here to teach people is, look, you can make decisions as yourself and this is how you do it. That's all. That's really the core of our work. Because you see, we can't go any further unless they try that. I mean, think about it. You know, there's no point in going any further unless they try that. And it's only when they begin to experiment with making decisions according to the mechanics that the door really opens up. And your job as a teacher is to inspire them to get to that place. You all know that I have a great deal of affection and long-term connection with many of you, but I'm still in the business of inspiring you with simple terms. I'm still howling at you to, you know, follow your strategy and blah, 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 because that's part of what it means to teach human design. It's so easy for your students to say, wow, this is fascinating, and never experiment with being themselves. It's so easy. And you know, for me, the whole thing is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to inspire people to go through this experiment, because then what we can educate them with really has substance. You know, then they're going to be ready to take that in. There is no truth in our work if you don't live it. There isn't. There isn't. I have nothing against not self-intellectuals that will probe human design. Good for them. But if you're going to be an instrument of this knowledge, if you're going to be a teacher of this knowledge, you've got to live it. It is the living of it that is transmitted through your aura. If you're not secure in your position, it's transmitted through your aura. If you're insecure with a question from a student, it's transmitted through your aura. I remember long time ago, I had to get a teaching license. So I had to do some supervised teaching in a high school. And there was a whole bunch of student teachers, you know, who had been trained in university, and this was also their time to go in and do these things. And I can remember sitting in the staff room with them, and they were terrified. I mean, they were terrified of getting in front of this classroom of kids. They were all nervous. Do you remember what that was like in high school when you would get one of these teachers? Do you remember how cruel we were to them? How much we loved it when they would come into the classroom because we could just go, because you can smell it. It's like a dog smelling fear on you and you're going, nice doggy, nice doggy. The dog knows. They know. They do. It's the aura after all. And you have to see that if you're not correct, your aura isn't correct. If you're correct and a question challenges your limitation, your aura isn't going to give off this, oh, I'm fucked. You know, it isn't. It's going to give off a very honest, I don't know, I'll check it out, I'll see. I mean, it's very important that your aura is secure, and that's you. I mean, that's you as a being. You know, so if you're heading into that door with trepidation, if you're heading into that door with insecurity, your students are going to know, and it makes them uncomfortable. They don't trust it. Nobody trusts a teacher who is nervous about teaching. You don't. You don't. Now, by the way, that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have adrenaline running in your body. It's only natural. You know, it doesn't matter where or when I do, teaching. The fact is, the first day, the first moment, you always feel the adrenaline. There's more energy in your body. Things come out faster. There's all these things that happen. That's adrenaline. It's normal. But you have to be secure, and I don't mean being secure in the knowledge. It's about you. You're the transmitter. You're the instrument. And you see, we have to get to a point where we recognize that, for example, let's say that, and it's something that I recommend and have continued to recommend, and hopefully as design expands, and it is expanding now in a very rapid phase, that it's more and more possible for type to work with type. If you put a projector into a classroom with a group of projectors, the aura of that teacher is so important. Same thing with a generator, with a group of generators, how important that aura is. And it is their spirit, their quality that everybody is feeling, because that's where the focus is. So the first step about being prepared as a teacher is that you're secure within yourself, that you're making the right decision, that you're entering into this process of teaching someone correctly. And when you're entering into that correctly, when you're secure in your position, it makes it a lot easier to teach. The secondary level obviously is knowledge. It is a rule of thumb. You should always know at least 70% more than you teach. Now obviously that is just a kind of arbitrary, whatever, proportional, But what it really means is that you have to be careful that you need to be able to deal with not simply the questions that arise out of the level that you're teaching, but the questions that can arise out of the questions, or the questions that arise out of the answer. In other words, there can be a chain, and you need to be comfortable in being able to be in that position where you're well above the level you're teaching, so you have for yourself the highest level of confidence. For all of you, teaching the ABCs is very easy. It's very easy from the knowledge level, because it is so basic, and you can be very comfortable in the delivery of that. But as we move along, you have to have a deeper and deeper knowledge base to be comfortable at each of those successive levels. There's two ways in which you can do that. The most important way is that, these are not rules, obviously, these are just suggestions, but one of the things that was enormously helpful for me in my own development as a teacher in design was readings. I found that doing the readings provided me with a much more diverse insight into the way in which certain aspects work in people. The other thing to recognize is that, given the nature of fractals, that the people that you're doing readings for are also going to be, in many ways, the people that ultimately you're going to teach. In other words, it's the same fractal line. So I think it's very important for you to keep in touch with that level. Now, that's not for everybody. I understand that. I understand that there are people who just really want to teach human design and want to move to that level. But it's one of the things that work. If you're not going to continue to have a reading practice, then you really have to make sure that you simply keep current with all of the mainstreams that are going on in design now, so that you make sure that your educational level is always up to the minute, if you will. By the way, a comment about things like that. I did a special last Monday on Jovian Radio on bird flu. And I've been discussing this, and I was discussing Pluto. We have, let me see. What do I want? That's our design right now. And you can see Pluto down here in the 26.4. And this is censorship, the alteration of memory through elimination. When I was talking about this in the special I did, I was talking about the fact that, you know, the 26 gate is a cross-special gate. It connects to the 44. So this is the way that birds and fish and reptiles connect with humans. So we have a barrier that's there, and a barrier that can be crossed. 2 days ago, the front page of the International Herald Tribune, the prediction is that if the bird flu actually breaks out, that it is likely that there will be more deaths in 2 months than from the entire death toll of all AIDS victims. So you can imagine how devastating this thing is. And what I mentioned in my broadcast was that during this transit in the 4, by the way, it goes very quickly, and by the end of December it leaves the 26. In the 4th gate, it was going to be where the place actually happened where there was the barrier was crossed. And 2 days ago, the barrier was crossed. In Thailand, the first case, sisters actually, that bird flu not only was a matter that the bird infected a human, but for the first time a human carried the new retrovirus and gave it to another human. So now the bridge has been crossed. It's this kind of thing. In other words, we have a lot of material now that's really available at a very deep level on a day-to-day basis in design that can keep everybody concurrent with what's going on. And it's a real responsibility as a professional to make sure that you know, if you're not going to do the groundwork, I mean, you know, the 6,000 readings that I did, you know, they were invaluable to my knowledge of others. Now, for example, if you're a projector, you can basically just do that through your research. In other words, you can just spend a lot of time analyzing charts. Okay, that's not effective for generators. It really isn't. I mean, you know, it is not their principal purpose in life. It's not the way they are genetically constructed in that sense to be fascinated endlessly in that sense about looking at the other. You know, it's one thing for them to respond to being able to help the other with that, but, you know, they're not projectors. They're not here to go deep into the system of recognizing through the other. But it's important that you realize that as a teacher, you cannot afford. This is what happened, and it was simply a byproduct of the way in which design developed. Obviously, it was new knowledge. So, you know, the group of teachers that were trained in '96, many of them fell out of the loop. And really, in this day and age, really couldn't teach. Many of the teachers in the generation of 2000 who didn't stay with the fastest expansion in design's knowledge no longer have the competency, really, to teach at the level that you're able to teach at as the 3rd generation. In other words, you know, you're at a place now where the whole knowledge base has been properly laid out. So you have enormous advantages. It's like listening to a tape of somebody who's been trained in the last 6 months compared to somebody who was trained 4 years ago or 8 years ago. It is an extraordinary difference. I mean, it pleases me so much. I mean, you know, new analysts, because I don't see them anymore, right? I mean, I don't get to see that level of the design world anymore. So I don't really have a sense of it other than these moments. Every once in a while I get to hear something and I get to check it out. And it's really amazing to me, the skills that are there because of type and profile and the tools that are there for the analyst to work with. But it's important that you maintain your educational direction, that's all. In other words, you really have to see that as a professional, after all, you are investing a lot of money in this. You know, it's very important for you. This is an investment in what is, in many ways, a business for you. And you will see that very rapidly you will make back your investment. You know, and it's one of the advantages, and it's one of the things about the nature of my work and the way in which Jovian Archive is structured. We're the only organization that is in this kind of work where we do not tax our professionals endlessly. You know, once you're a teacher, and you don't owe Jovian anything.